A short summary of The Body Keeps the Score, by Bessel van der Kolk by The Inner Revolution, saving you time on your journey to wisdom. Subscribe to our channel for more free audiobook summaries now. Trauma has become one of those broad psychological terms that is often thrown around but seldom truly understood. Even in the field of psychiatry, trauma has historically been a nebulous term with a wide range of symptoms and treatments. In The Body Keeps the Score, the author explores how the understanding and treatment of trauma has evolved as new technologies, research, and fields of science emerged. Trauma can stem from a one-time event or an ongoing experience, from abuse to a severe car accident to wartime combat, and can cause a lifetime of flashbacks, nightmares, isolation, insomnia, hypervigilance, and rage. Until just a few decades ago, there was no umbrella diagnosis for trauma. Instead, patients were wrongly diagnosed with depression, mood disorders, substance abuse, even schizophrenia. Incorrect diagnoses led to ineffective treatments and patients continued suffering. The effects of trauma live on not only in the emotional mind and the chemical makeup and circuitry of the brain, but also in the body's physiology. Traumatic experiences rewire the brain to cause people to be hypervigilant to threats. The slightest hint of a threat sends trauma sufferers into a fight-or-flight response, triggering stress hormones to flood their bodies and keep them in a state of hyperarousal long after the perceived threat is gone. Over time, hypervigilance and hyperarousal cause physical ailments and hamper trauma sufferers' ability to function emotionally and socially. Trauma's impact on the mind. Mentally and emotionally, trauma affects how survivors interact with people and the world around them. Trauma survivors experience isolation, unable to trust anyone after suffering pain and abuse at the hands of another person. Additionally, sufferers don't believe anyone could understand how they feel. Furthermore, they struggle to read people's emotions and intentions through their physical expressions because they're so consumed by their hypervigilance that they can't connect with other people. They see most people as threats, and they don't give off an open, welcoming vibe to invite others to approach them. Trauma survivors are often more haunted by shame at what they did or didn't do during the traumatic event, whether or not they could have rationally acted any differently than by the atrocity of their abuser's actions. Trauma survivors typically develop learned helplessness, a sense of powerlessness and resignation to their circumstances after experiencing an inescapable trauma, such as a car accident, combat zone, or physical assault. Trauma survivors suffer from flashbacks, which can be triggered by almost anything, e.g. an image, sound, smell, or phrase that reminds the trauma survivor of their traumatic event, and bring on a bombardment of fragmented memories of their traumatic experience. It can happen anytime, anywhere, and you never know how long the flashback will last. Flashbacks keep survivors stuck in their traumatic event, so that they're never able to be fully engaged in the present. As a result, they typically go through life feeling numb. Trauma's impact on the brain. Traumatic experiences are so overwhelming that parts of the brain go offline while others go into overdrive, and as a result, your brain fails to process the traumatic event and integrate it into the timeline of your life, as it would any other experience. Consequently, the trauma never becomes part of the past. It's ever present, as evidenced by the pervasive flashbacks and near-constant state of fight or flight. Brain scans reveal that when trauma survivors experience flashbacks, their brains react as if the actual trauma were happening in that moment. Your brain has three parts. 1. The reptilian brain, which manages your most primitive functions such as breathing, eating, sleeping, and expelling waste. 2. The limbic system, the mammalian brain, which manages emotions, looks out for danger, and helps you navigate social networks. 3. The neocortex, the rational brain, which operates logic, language, creativity, empathy, and the ability to plan for the future and reflect on the past. Together, the reptilian brain and the limbic system, the two most primitive parts of your brain, make up the emotional brain. The emotional brain alerts you to danger and, if necessary, jump-starts your pre-programmed reactions, like the fight or flight response, before your rational brain weighs in to determine if the threat is really a threat, e.g. you might jump back at the sight of a snake, only to realize it's just a rope. However, trauma hinders the brain from accurately and effectively perceiving threats. so trauma survivors go through life constantly jumping in response to non-threats. Trauma's impact on the body. Your mind and body are inextricably connected. Emotions give you physical sensations, e.g. butterflies in your stomach, and are revealed in your facial expressions and body language. By the same token, physical sensations impact your mood and emotions. A soft, warm breeze puts you at ease, while loud, clanging noises put you on edge. Trauma and flashbacks cause intense emotions and physical sensations that are so overwhelming that survivors cope by suppressing both their emotions and physical sensations. As a result, they become disconnected from their bodies, unable to identify and interpret their physical sensations, which makes it impossible to feel fully alive, take care of their bodies and minds, and effectively engage with other people. When you suppress or can't understand what your physical sensations are telling you, the body finds other ways to demand your attention. Many trauma survivors develop psychosomatic issues, physical ailments that have no physical cause, such as migraines, neck and back pain, fibromyalgia, asthma, digestive issues, irritable bowel syndrome, and chronic fatigue. Childhood sources of trauma. As a baby, since you're unable to care for yourself, you must rely on your caregivers to meet your most basic needs, from food and clothing to safety and comfort. Your attachment, how well your caregivers meet your needs, determines how well you'll take care of these needs for yourself later in life. Furthermore, the more responsive your caregivers are to you, the more responsive you'll be to others. Babies are wired to form an attachment to their caregivers, and the type of attachment a baby develops depends on how well her caregiver meets her needs. Secure attachment is when caregivers adequately and readily meet the baby's needs. This is the healthiest form of attachment. Securely attached babies grow to become resilient children and adults. Insecure attachment is when caregivers don't reliably meet a baby's needs. This creates some psychological issues, but although caregivers aren't attentive enough to meet all the baby's needs, their behavior is consistent enough that the baby learns what to expect and adapts in one of two ways. Avoidantly attached babies appear calm and unbothered, but have a consistently high heart rate that reveals a constant state of hyperarousal. These babies become adults who are not in touch with their feelings or others, and they can often be bullies. Anxiously or ambivalently attached babies cry and fuss constantly, apparently reasoning that this is the only way to get attention. Anxious babies become anxious children and adults, and tend to be the victims of bullying. Disorganized attachment is when a caregiver causes the baby fear or distress. This is the most psychologically harmful form of attachment because the baby is stuck between fearing the caregiver and needing her for survival. Children with disorganized attachment often become aggressive or disengaged and exhibit related physical symptoms, including increased heart rate, high stress hormone levels, and decreased immune system. As adults, they don't know who to trust, so they may be overly affectionate with strangers or distrusting of everyone. Attachment and childhood experiences shape your inner maps of the world. As an adult, your inner map determines what you consider normal and familiar, how you interpret situations, and how you engage with the people and world around you. Inner maps are generally consistent through life, but they can be changed negatively by trauma or positively through profound experiences. Treatment approaches for the mind, brain, and body. Effective treatment must help trauma sufferers regain control of themselves and their thoughts, feelings, and body. Generally, this involves 4 steps. 1. Learn how to be calm and focused. 2. Find a way to stay calm in the face of sensations, images, sounds, smells, associated with your trauma. 3. Learn how to be present and engage with the people around you. 4. Don't hide things from yourself, such as the ways you adapted in order to survive during and after your trauma. There are 3 general approaches to treatment: the top-down approach, medication, and the bottom-up approach. Top-down, talk it out. The top-down approach involves talking, connecting with other people, and opening up about your traumatic memories and their present-day effects. Opening up about your trauma has several healing benefits. Talking about the trauma breaks the silence and isolation of keeping such a big, life-impacting secret. Acknowledging the trauma and the emotions it triggers relieves you from the immense energy required to suppress those emotions, and it allows you to manage the emotions more effectively. Opening up to other people creates an opportunity for you to feel heard and understood and to reconnect with your community. Talk therapy is inadequate as a sole form of treatment for trauma sufferers because revisiting their trauma often brings up overwhelming emotions that can re-traumatize them and increase their fixation. This is the reason that cognitive behavioral therapy, which aims to desensitize patients through repeatedly talking about the trauma, isn't an effective treatment method. Instead of becoming desensitized, trauma survivors need help integrating the traumatic memory into the timeline of their lives, placing it securely in the past, so they can fully accept that it's over. This still involves revisiting the memory, but first the patient must learn to cope with the reactions that the trauma will inevitably bring up to avoid becoming overwhelmed and enable her to complete the integration. Trauma survivors often struggle to articulate what happened to them and how it makes them feel because their brains didn't process the event as a coherent narrative but rather as a collection of fragmented sensations. To bridge this gap, there are several other ways for trauma sufferers to express themselves, including noticing physical sensations. Being aware of how your voice changes or where you feel tension in your body can lead you to notice the emotions behind those sensations. Engaging in art, music, and dance. These can be outlets for expressing your innermost feelings when you can't put them into words. These outlets can also help you connect with your feelings so that you can then write about them. Free writing. This exercise encourages stream of consciousness writing without stopping, rereading, or self-editing. Reading back through later often reveals surprising inner truths. The top-down approach includes talk therapy, mindful breathing, mindful self-awareness, trusting relationships, group activities, e.g. kickboxing, choral singing, dancing, bodywork, e.g. massage and Feldenkrais, medication, alter your brain chemistry. The medication approach involves using prescription drugs that inhibit trauma survivors' overactive internal alarm systems or affect the brain's chemistry in some other way to alleviate the symptoms of trauma. This approach goes hand in hand with the brain disease model, which views mental problems as disorders that could be treated with drugs to adjust brain chemistry. Although drugs can assist treatment by taming overwhelming emotions, there are several drawbacks to the rise of medications. Medications often become a substitution for therapy and allow patients to treat their symptoms without addressing the root problems. Reliance on medication also prevents patients from feeling empowered in their own healing, and instead places the power in the hands of the prescribing doctors and insurance companies. The profitability of medications deters studies of non-drug treatments from being carried out and/or published. As a result, many patients never consider or get the chance to explore other means of healing. Bottom up, engage your body. The bottom-up approach involves seeking physical experiences that connect the body and mind to counteract feelings of helplessness, rage, and emotional collapse that plague trauma survivors. Since trauma makes sufferers feel out of control of their bodies, e.g. hyperarousal, disconnection from physical sensations, and psychosomatic issues, helping them regain that control is vital to healing. There are several treatments that help patients engage their bodies in healing. Eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, EMDR, is a treatment in which patients focus on a therapist's finger moving side to side while recalling their trauma and then processing whatever train of thought organically follows. While researchers don't know exactly how EMDR works, the treatment helps people get in touch with loosely connected memories and images and then integrate their traumatic experience into a broader context. Heart rate variability, HRV, is the balance between how your heart rate rises and falls, indicating how well you can stay calm and in control in the face of minor challenges. Trauma survivors have low HRV, creating negative effects on how they think, feel, and respond to stress, and making them vulnerable to physical issues such as heart disease and cancer, and depression. You can train yourself to change your breathing, and thus improve your HRV, through yoga as well as certain devices and smartphone apps. Yoga teaches you to focus on your breath, listen and respond to your body, and notice how emotions can be connected to certain physical sensations. This helps trauma survivors to reconnect with their physical sensations so they can feel safe and in control of their own bodies. Additionally, yoga encourages you to be present by focusing on your breath and body sensations, and reinforces the fact that experiences are transitory, e.g., as hard as this pose may be, you only need to endure it for 10 breaths. Psychomotor therapy uses body awareness and physical expressions as a key aspect of therapy, activating the right hemisphere of the brain, the same hemisphere where trauma is also largely imprinted. One form, called Passoboidin system psychomotor, PBSP, therapy instructs a patient to physically recreate scenes of her childhood and trauma, and then essentially rewrite the story. This form of therapy doesn't eliminate or neutralize traumatic memories, but it does create a new experience, e.g. of being loved or protected, that helps to rewrite your inner maps. Neurofeedback aims to fix the circuitry in patients' brains by mirror back patients' brain waves in order to encourage certain frequencies and brain patterns while discouraging others. Different frequencies are associated with different mental and emotional states, e.g. foggy, creative, calm, relaxed, alert. Viewing brain activity as the source of their problematic behavior frees patients from self-blame, and instead puts their focus on learning new ways to process information, which is at the root of their behavior. Theater targets many of the things trauma survivors struggle most with, providing healing experiences as well as challenges that push them to work through trauma-created mental and emotional barriers. Acting gives them a chance to embody a character that may be strong, resilient, and confident, and it makes valuable, contributing members of a community, which helps them regain a sense of worth and competence. Theater also pushes trauma sufferers to get in touch with their emotions, take full control of their bodies, and trust the other members of the theater community.